Hey there, you filthy animals. It is motherfucks sucking dicks and licking ladies. Hey there, you filthy animals. It is Caleb, James, and Spencer, the Moroccan Love Machine Church. What's going on there, Spencer?
Oh, same old, man. Just happy to finally get back to doing this after our hiatus that they won't realize that we've actually been on.
For those who have been listening to the previous episodes, those are all old episodes we recorded over a year ago, I think, some of them, because we kind of just been fucking off. But we decided we need to get back into it, bought all this equipment, and did a bunch of cool shit with the website, so probably should take it more seriously.
Yeah, get our shit together a little bit.
Yeah, know? So we actually set it up proper, went through the proper channels, and now we have an actual podcast, not just YouTube podcast, which we had for a month there. But today's episode, I think, will be a doozy. We are going to go, unlike the previous episode, which is 50 Shades of Grey sex readings, this one will be a little more professional. We're going with Neil Gaiman's top 12 writing tips. I think these will be pretty decent.
I think he knows what he's doing, so...
He might. I mean, he has some good books. Before we get into the writing tips, though, I just finished reading American Gods, and I thought it was excellent, but I did have a conversation with a writer buddy of mine, and I wanted your take on this.
All right.
Because I talked to him about Neil Gaiman before because I read Nick Sandman and stuff, his comics, but I haven't read his actual novels.
I haven't read any of his actual novel work, just a good bit of his comic stuff.
Well, my buddy, he read a bunch of his work, surprisingly not American Gods, but like all his other stuff, and his consensus was Neil Gaiman is a good writer, but he's only good at like not necessarily mythology stuff, but doing stories that are already out there, like retelling mythology stories and things like that. I mean, you haven't read American Gods, but when I read it, it's very original, but at the same time, it has to do with gods and the retelling of pretty much all the gods, because he has African gods, Norse gods, American gods, like the Indian gods, and he goes through parts where he just tells their individual stories, but he does it from like their perspective. So, for instance, he had an African story where there's the people that believe in an African god, and when they got brought over on the slave ships, they brought that god, the idea of that god with them, and he tells kind of that god story through them. So it's an original story, but the gods exist, like, as folklore already.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not the only one who's done that, especially, like, with, gods. And, I mean, I'm pretty sure we mentioned this before, there's only so many kind of stories you can tell.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Every story's been told.
It's just how you tell it.
So, just going by that logic, where would you rate a guy like that? Because when I started American Gods, I thought it was more of a Stephen King style, like just his prose. But then it got a lot more literary, and it was just really well done. So the writing's not the problem, but unlike an Alan Moore who goes really, really deep, I felt his straddled that perfect line where it's engaging to your casual reader as well as people that are more into like classic literature. Like, he's really good at telling stories, but at the same time, is it just other stories? Like, how would he do telling a completely original story that's not based on any other characters? Or, because even, like, the Sandman stuff, those were a retelling, his version of classic mythological characters.
That's going to be a hard argument to discuss, too, considering how neither one of us, like, that's, between the both of us, that's the only story that we've read. Because I've always thought of Neil Gaiman as more of, like, a fantasy kind of author.
That's what I thought. Anyway, though, I just kind of wanted your opinion on what you thought, but you probably need to read more.
Yeah, I gotta at least read one of his
actual novels. But like I said, he does an excellent job with what he does, and I mean, if that's his, not necessarily gimmick, but if that's his genre, or how would you say it, his wheelhouse, why would you get out of it?
When you said more literary, or you were making the comparison to Stephen King, he's definitely not the literature, Stephen King's not the literature type. Neil Gaiman seems like the guy, like, he'll write something and it's might have this poignant meaning and poetry behind it to where, like, then Stephen King's like, and he was hanging from the roof with his guts hanging out, like...
Yeah, Stephen King's just a literal writer. He'll just tell you... I mean, he puts the image in your head, but if somebody's, gets fucked in the ass with a jackhammer, they get fucked in the ass with a jackhammer. Yeah. But Neil Gaiman, there will be a reason behind it. There's some kind of symbolism. He's getting fucked in the ass with a jackhammer because the construction business that he worked for went under, and it just has layers.
The jackhammer belonged to somebody that he fucked over or something. Now he's being fucked by the jackhammer.
Yeah, so a lot of his work is like that. 'Cause, like, I'm sure if I read American Gods over again, I would find a lot more things I missed now that I know the story. Because when you first start, I mean, he does it in a way it doesn't get confusing, but still there's some parts you're like, what the hell is happening exactly? Which is kind of why I'm interested to see the show now. I want to see what they do with that. Because a lot of the stuff they show, like the gods, and he kind of goes to this other world when he falls asleep. Like, I guess the world of the gods, and that seems really cool, but probably really hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, he ends up climbing like a mountain of skulls, fights a thunderbird or some crazy shit. But anyway, we're rambling here. So let's get on to the actual topic. I found this cool article on his writing tips. Like we were saying, I really liked his writing style. I didn't, when I first started, I thought it was going to be kind of over... Well, no, I thought it was going to be... more overhyped, because I always hear what a good writer he was, and I thought when I started reading it,
him living up to the expectation.
Yeah, and when I started reading like the first couple chapters, it just seemed basic. But then I think it was just a way to get the casual reader roped in, which is a good strategy. But his first tip on the what is this? I want to give a shout out to whoever this is. StandoutBooksPublishingServices.com. So StandoutBooks.com is where I found this article. If anybody's interested, I'll put it in the show notes. His first tip is, which I think is a very, very important thing for people to remember, because a lot of writers fail to do this, and it's don't wait for inspiration.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, and I've had this problem myself in the past, where if I don't feel necessarily inspired to write, I'll just put it off until I do, and sometimes I could go for weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually you just won't fucking write at all.
Yeah, you never will get the urge to, especially the longer you put it off for, the harder it's gonna be for you to get back into it.
Which is kind of procrastination with anything. If you put it off, the longer you put it off, depending on what it, like going to the gym, for instance, that's one of the things. If you put off, you probably just won't go.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm gonna be trying to, because I'm myself right now in a bit of a slump, trying to find my way back into the swing of things, and I've been mentally trying to look at it as writing as working out, and just like say you with bench pressing, you want to, if you have to, you start out really light, you
work your way up.
You do a couple, reps at a lighter, so you might want to just try to do a couple hundred words to just start you off, and then slowly build a base that can get you up to a higher word count, and then once you get to that plateau, you can kind of stay there and will become more of your steady output, and hopefully be able to stay at that output.
Right, and just build that consistency, because that's what's important. Because most writers, one thing that causes them to fail is a lack of consistency.
Yes.
Which I had a problem with too for a while, where I would get into a good writing, maybe even a solid month every day, just writing and doing my work, and then holidays come up or you have to go out to do a couple things, too tired from work, just whatever it is, it starts to build up. I'll skip one day, I'll be alright. Well, you know what, I can skip 2 days, I'll just get back at it. Well, you know what, I'll take the weekend off, I'll start on Monday fresh. And then you just keep doing that, and you end up not accomplishing anything.
And you have to stay diligent, because then if you get to that higher word count, something that you're comfortable doing, and then you're like, oh, well, I've done this for a good, couple weeks. I'm kind of ahead of the game a little bit. I can afford to coast or relax a little bit. No, you have to keep your foot.
It's like a professional athlete. You have to keep pushing, or you'll stagnate and you'll just start to fail.
I mean, how many times have you heard writers who even on their vacation, they're still well, I did a couple hundred words here or there, and it's that's supposed to be a vacation, dude. That's supposed to be your relaxed time, but you still.
Well, that brings up a good point too. Is you can't get burnt just like anything else. You can get burnt out on writing.
I mean, that's the delicate. That's the type wire that you're walking, you don't want to overdo yourself to the point to where you get burned out on it and you can't feel like you do anything at all, but you have to do enough so you're getting whatever projects you are working, done, and can move on to the next product. And you always got to be producing, like.
Yeah, and the main way to do that is you just have to make the time to write. So whether that'll be first thing in the morning before you go to work, or in the afternoon, a lunch break, whatever it is, you just have to make that time to write, even if it's just a couple hundred words.
Even if, like, say if you can't get a good, I'd like to have a good 2 solid hours just where I can divert myself to writing. Chances are you're not going to be able to do that. So if you get, like, 20 minutes here, and then a couple hours later you can get yourself, like, another half an hour. You got to take advantage of those little spots.
Yeah.
And then that added together can equal out. You can get a good amount of words done in 30 minutes if you're putting in the effort properly.
That is especially good for instance, people with kids or people that work more than one job. Anyone, if you have a hard time making that time just for whatever reason, because real life gets in the way all the time, while it's a good idea to set a specific writing routine, if you can work every evening for 2 hours and that's not going to ever be a problem, more power to you. But also, like you said, some people just can't do that, so you have to make catch those little windows. You get a 15-minute break at work or something, instead of going out smoking or talking to people or something, use that to write, even if it's just on your phone. Or you can hit up a cafe on your way home, and where you're not because while it's good to have a comfort zone, that can also be a hindrance. So if you could only write at your desk at home, well, you're not going to get work done if you're not at home at your desk. So maybe stop at a cafe on your way home, sit down in 10 minutes, uninterrupted, and you're going to work there because you don't have any real distractions necessarily. No real world distractions, especially if you have kids or something bothering you. That's a good way to go about it, is just make those little windows, and then over time, even just a week, say you can only fit 10 minutes a week. Yeah. Well, that's still 70 minutes a week if you do 10 minutes a day, rather. Anything's better than nothing.
Yes.
So my biggest tip, too, if I was a famous writer, would also be don't wait for inspiration. Just write. Sit down and write. Because like Stephen King said, amateurs wait for inspiration. Professional writers just sit down and write.
Yes.
You just go to work. And that's the best way to handle it. So no matter what time you can get, even if it's only 2 minutes, that's better than nothing, and that's progress. Because the last thing you want to do is just stagnate. Which kind of brings back the point you were saying earlier about how, say you get to that 1,000-word-a-day limit or something, like you built yourself up to that. But if you don't try to push beyond that, you're just doing the 1,000 words a day. That'll become your new bare minimum. Like I had that problem for a while where I would write maybe 300 words in a day or something, and it got to the point where I would almost kind of be procrastinating on my writing. So say I had a story I wanted to work on, but I just kind of wasn't feeling it. I'd be, well, as long as I knock out the 300 words, that's good. And while that's progress, it would take forever to finish that work.
It's not enough progress.
Yeah, so you always want to find that balance of enjoying your work, but also it's still work. So you have to put that the effort forward.
Yeah, because I'd imagine most people who want to be doing this want this to take over their actual job. So therefore,
that'd be the dream.
So therefore, you need to treat it like your actual job.
The main failure of most aspiring writers is just that they don't put forth the effort. Like they think they're putting forth the effort, but they're really not utilizing all their spare time that they could be using. Or they make excuses and they're not consistent enough. You really just have to sit down. And even bad writers I've seen get a good following on the indie market because they're consistent.
They're always putting something out.
Yeah, I've seen some people. A good example would be for any of the folks that ever followed the Dead Robot Society. The one writer on there, Terry, he started off kind of writing short stories and things like that. But he got to the point where I think he knocks out like a book every 3 months or a month or something crazy. Yeah. But apparently they're pretty decent because he has a good following, and I think he said he made like 6 figures last year from writing. That's pretty wild in my opinion. And he's an indie author. He does I think he does his own editing, and he might hire an editor now, but just the point is he was able to get that following mainly because he was consistent. Because even if you're not a Neil Gaiman level writer, you could still find, say, 500 people that really like your work.
Yeah.
As with any writer, you might only have a handful of people that really follow your work, especially when you're starting out. But even just the low end, 5 writers, but they spend $10 on your book.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of change just for your writing. I mean, that pays for some of the cover art and stuff like that. So you just keep building on that. And that kind of brings us to the next point. Neil Gaiman's next tip is set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Now, so we're not using just our own words to interpret it. I'm going to actually read his quote here. From Neil Gaiman, he says, "On the whole, anything that gets you writing and keeps you writing is a good thing. Anything that stops you writing is a bad thing." Simple enough.
Yeah.
If you find your writers group stopping you from writing, then drop it. We kind of wanted to start a writing group for a while there, but we weren't able to really find anybody that would necessarily be consistent with what we wanted. Weekly meetings and things like that. And I know a lot of people that get into writing groups, their main complaint is it ends up turning into a big critique orgy.
Yeah.
You're just criticizing people's work and you're going back and forth. And even though it might be helpful, you're not fucking working anymore.
I figured it would either be that, because I've never been in, but I figured it'd either be that or it'd just be a huge, just circle jerk of, oh, your stuff is really good. No, your stuff is really good.
You're so good.
Yeah.
Guac, squirt on the chin. Like Chuck Palahniuk said, he was in a writer's group. He was in it for years, and I think he probably had pretty famous, I don't know if they're famous, but pretty popular writers, at least in the literary world, in that group. One of the problems he had with it, he ended up having to quit the writers group because with the changing times, like his work is pretty raunchy, and some of the stuff he wrote was a little too extreme and made people upset. And so you'll have that. What if your work upsets somebody in the group that has different political, religious, sexual views, whatever it may be, then they might get offended by your work, and now you're writing for somebody who is not even your target audience. And he used an example of another writer in his group. She wrote something that was kind of graphic but very poignant to the story. The people in the group kind of said that you would never get published with that and made her end up taking it out. So would you want to be in a group where they're stunning your work or your creative vision? I would say that's definitely a hard no for me.
Yeah.
Because while there is good criticism out there and maybe you do go too far on something, you don't want to you want to base kind of your writing around the audience's view to a degree, but you definitely don't want them controlling your creative image.
Yeah, because at that point you're writing for them more than yourself.
No matter what they say, you want to write for yourself first. You want to have your audience in mind, but definitely your first draft is for you. It's your story, it's your vision, and you want to tell it the way you want to tell it. You don't want somebody micromanaging your opinion. And that's what I feel a lot of writers groups and things like that end up becoming. Micromanaging your work or telling you how you should do your work as if it was their work. And you definitely don't want that. And just going back to the success aspect of it, I mean, we're just using the writers group as an example, but that translates to any aspect of your life. Say you have a significant other who hates the fact that you write for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You're not spending time with that person or whatever it is that irritates them about it. They just don't like you doing it. What do? Do you give up your dream of writing? I mean, it gets tricky too, because what if that person's a perfect fit for you in every other way, but that one detail? But then again, they're not willing to compromise on what you enjoy. Do you want them around or not? But that's the thing with success. Sometimes you have to make sacrifice.
Yeah.
Whether it be people, jobs, things. I mean, some people have said that if you want something bad enough, you have to be willing to hit rock bottom in your life to go for it. I mean, I don't know how I'd feel about having to sleep on a park bench to be a writer. That'd be a little extreme. But at the same time, I get the point they're making. What would you think would be something you would just not be willing to give up, for your dream of writing? You just, say you had to fucking quit your job to become a writer. Would you do that? Would you be willing to maybe struggle for a little while?
I wouldn't mind doing that if I completed a book or something, and the first book, got it out there, and saw that it had some very minor success. a couple people bought it.
It had some merit. People enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't a bestseller, but it was decent.
Yeah. Then maybe that's when the consideration would have to, now I couldn't because I'm not able to.
Well, yeah, it'd be ridiculous now if you're not.
But, if I could find myself where I could, if I'm building enough of a niche audience and putting out the workflow that I can finish things to get to them, then yes. Now, granted, I'm going to be a little biased because I can't fucking stand my job.
Yeah.
And it would do anything just to not have to work there, period. So yeah, if I could give that up and just be focused full-time writing, well then yeah, I would, but...
Well, look at it from this aspect. What if you weren't an established writer, but say you've written your first novel, you've been shopping it around to different publishers, and be real, you're probably going to get a shitload of rejections just because you're a no-name in the writing industry. But what happens if you do get a hit and a decent publisher wants to give you $10,000 advance, finish that book, and maybe give you a book deal for 3 books in the future? But the catch is, now you have to really focus on the writing. Are you going to be able to work that full-time job, or would you maybe just even cut the part-time?
I was gonna say maybe with the move is at first go down to less hours, so you still have some kind of income. Plus, in the advance, if they give you the advance or whatever.
Well, you have to be real here. Nobody's going to be able to just, unless you have a really good job and you have a crazy severance package or whatever it is, decent amount of savings. You're not going to be able to just quit your job.
Yeah.
Even if you had that first hit of success, because writing is not a stable career.
Well, and then you also this is something, people might not think about, but I always is a forefront in my mind, because with my own personal issues is healthcare,
yeah, you can't just not have it.
Yeah, you need that. Or if you have kids, you need to be able to, to watch over your family and stuff like that. So maybe if you're able to, cut down, not work a full 40-hour week, but maybe be able to work a 32-hour week and still keep your benefits and your health care. And so that's another day off. You can maybe commit that whole day to writing once a week, no matter what. Plus, whenever you can fit it in throughout the rest of the week.
And hopefully that would make you more serious about it, too. A good example of sacrifice for your dream and success would be a J.K. Rowling. Because, everyone knows, she started out, she was on welfare. She, I think, living in a trailer, about to be evicted and stuff. But she didn't give up her dream. She kept shopping around, and then, obviously, she became, the first female writer billionaire or something crazy. You definitely have to be willing to sacrifice if you want the success. And the main way to do that is just to drop the things that aren't going to benefit you in the writing world or in your dreams there. Like I said before, I may use a spouse as an example, or a writing group as an example that affects you negatively, but it really could be anything. It could be maybe something else you like, but not as much. Say you like playing in a football, a tag football league or something.
Or video games of the devil of trying to get anything productive done.
Yeah, things that are wasting your time, and even though you really enjoy them, that's not going to benefit your future career that you have in your mind. You might have to drop them. It's a sacrifice, but if you're really serious, that's one you have to make.
Hopefully, making that sacrifice, and you then get to the point later on where you get you're successful enough to where then you might be able to pick those things back up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You might not be able to do it for a couple of years, but then you have a couple books under your belt, you got yourself a good writing work schedule down, and, you're making more money off this, and then you can maybe go back to your flag football league whatever. Once you get your following and base set underneath of you steady enough.
And another thing about setting yourself up for success, it's not all about sacrifice too. It's about, like we were talking before, the positive habits you're building, the preparation, making the writing time, things like that. You have to set yourself up to succeed. Like we used before, waking up a little earlier just to get some writing done, make that a routine or a habit. Just different things like that. You have to set yourself up to succeed, and the only way to do that is to build, just jumping right into it and saying, oh, I'm going to be a full-time writer and just quitting everything. Like, that's not going to work.
Nope.
You're going to fucking burn and fall and just become a giant pile of rubble. Anyway, so the third tip he has here is don't edit immediately. This is one I struggle with.
Trouble with this all the time.
I struggle to this goddamn day. I try not to go back as I write and edit because it takes so much longer. I have been doing better lately. Mainly is because I've been going more by the Hemingway style of writing, where I will keep things short and to the point. And so I'll write my first draft that way now, instead of having some complex sentence full of imagery and stuff like that. I'll keep it short and sweet and just get the story out.
Yeah,
is the most important thing, because that's one of the things I used to have trouble with. Is I would have so much detail in my mind, and I just want to release that on the page. But no, that's not the way to do it. That's for editing.
Get that first draft done.
Yeah. So if it's the cat bit the man's ass hurt because the cat bit him, he fucking kicked the cat, and then the cat scratched him. That's fucking caveman talk. But just if that's what you got to do, just get that out. Don't go back and change. Well, the cat's first stood up on end, and its claws like daggers risen from the hell dug into his fucking eye socket. Like, you don't have to go into that much detail. He scratched his eye out. Just get it out there. And then sorry about that, folks. I don't know if you heard that, but my dog went on a ridiculous squeaking spree in the background. I had to pause things for a moment. I completely forgot what I was talking about, which is a perfect segue just to go to the next tip.
Yeah.
We're talking about don't edit him immediately. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if you have trouble with that ever.
Not normally. I probably have the opposite effect of not doing enough editing.
You don't pay attention. You
just I get the first story down, and then I'll go over to it and fix it. All the spelling and grammar errors that just riddle it, and then add a little bit. And then normally I'm like, hey, Caleb, how's this look like? And then you give me some ideas and trying to punch it up a little bit or a little bit more detail or things. But my always things first one's good enough, that's good.
Yeah, that's
Move on to the next.
That's not going to work at all in your favor if you work with a professional editor. They'll just shit right in your face.
Yeah,
big, steamy diarrhea shit right in your face and tell you to fuck right off and never talk to you again. And then you're blacklisted from the industry. And then you have to write fuck fiction. And then probably make $500 million in the movie industry, because apparently fuck fiction is where it's at.
I think should be the new term for that.
Fuck fiction?
Yeah.
Fuck fic.
I think it should be a course in high school.
Here's something to get completely off topic, not off topic of the fuck fiction, but off the list here. I did not get involved, because if I do get involved in these conversations, it was on Twitter, I somehow always end up on the wrong end.
Yeah.
Not because of my opinions, but just because I try to think of things more logically. There was a debate going on about people don't respect the romance genre, even though it's might be actually the highest paid genre, and not respecting romance writers. Which I completely agree with that. A lot of people don't respect romance writers, and there's a lot of great romance writers.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't read the genre myself, but I've read excerpts and things like that, and a lot of them have beautifully written stories. But a lot of the popular ones, your E.L. James, 50 Shades of Grey, come on.
Yeah.
That's where I always go on slope is, yeah, but I mean, I guess you could do that with any kind of fiction. You look at the top person and they might suck ass.
Isn't the Nicholas Sparks, isn't he a big romance? Isn't most of his stuff romance?
Yeah, kind of. But I don't know how good of a writer he is, because I've never written it. Or, I mean, I've never read it.
I mean, I'm just saying, as I'm sure he's better than the 50 Shades of Grey chick. You know what I mean? I would have to think. I'd have to hope.
I'm pretty sure, an illiterate fucking gold prospector in the 1800s was a better writer than her. Well, it actually might be possible. A lot of the Civil War era guys, you ever read some of those old letters?
No.
It's oh, my dearest James, the wind beneath my wings and the times of change. It's Jesus. And that's just a normal, personally, I can't be I can write in cursive that's readable.
Right? Oh my God.
Those guys with the second grade education were penning goddamn literary masterpieces.
And they didn't have a pen, mind you.
It was a feather dipped in black ink that they probably squeezed out of a squid.
Yeah. It might just be tar. Like
tar or their own blood.
Yeah.
The blood of their enemies, maybe.
I don't know how any of my checks don't automatically just get tossed because how bad my signature is at,
Well, you know what I'm wondering? What about the kids now where they don't even teach cursive anymore?
I mean, I can tell you now, other than my name, I have hard trouble remembering what certain letters are cursive.
I can honestly say I don't remember what a Z looks like.
Right? It's like, I think it's this weird, there's a loop at one end. I don't know.
Apparently, for the last 15 years on my rent check, I've been writing the F wrong, or the T wrong, rather. So I write the T as the F, I think. Or maybe vice. I still don't know. I looked it up, and I forget because I don't give a fuck, because who reads that?
Nobody.
Are you allowed? I always was taught you're not supposed to print on the money part of the check. Like when you say it's, $155, you're supposed to write out $150. Can you print that? I don't know. I mean,
no, that's what I do. Yeah, no, I print.
You print the...
Yeah, and then who it's to, I print.
Well, you print the who it's to, but I was always taught you're supposed to write out.
Well, yeah, no, I write it out.
But in cursive.
Oh, no, not in cursive.
Well, I'm just fucking stupid.
Yeah, I do that in print, and then, you put the number in the little box, and then I sign my name at the bottom.
What the fuck are you writing checks for?
Hookers
don't take checks.
Some do.
Around here, maybe.
Oh, massive medical bills and car payments and...
What the hell do you pay things for? This is America. You're not supposed to actually pay off debt.
Yeah, well,
Okay. So we were talking about something.
The editing.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Here's our awful advice to don't ever edit ever.
No.
Never. As Outcast says, never ever. Just don't do it. Leave that for the editor. He will love the fact that you sent him a manuscript that wasn't even glanced over.
And if you feel bad about it, just figure you're paying him a shit ton of money. Make him work for it.
You know what? That is a very good point. If I was spending $2,000, $3,000 on a professional editor, I'm not going to go over it 5 times myself.
Yeah. I mean, how mad would you be if you spent that much money on an editor, and you got it back, and he's like, that's pretty good.
Pretty damn good.
I mean, it would be nice to have that professional opinion for it and stuff like that, but then you're just like, God damn, I just wasted $2,000 for nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, if you're an indie publisher, that's a problem. If you are going through a publishing house, I'm obviously not a published author through a publishing house, but I assume they just assign you an editor and they pay them.
That's what I would assume, or if there was an editor that you liked within that, I'm pretty sure the Stephen Kings, the Neil Gaimans, they probably have editors that they enjoy working with.
Oh yeah, you have to because editors also input their own ideas into it too, and I mean you don't have to include them, but you're gonna want their opinion, and you don't want feedback. The opinion of just some random old guy. You want somebody that you can actually work with, and also just a note to any editors out there who are listening to this. I apologize if you get a slew of just really shitty manuscripts now because people just took our advice of not editing at all.
We didn't think anybody would listen.
If you want to write angry letters, just go. You can find it at neilgaiman.com. That's the guy that you want to send those to. Number 4 tipped by Neil Gaiman. That's going to sound like I made a cut in the audio because I just jumped right into it. That's how we should do it from now on. Just number 3 and just cut right in the middle of a sentence. Number 4, let yourself get bored. Well, let's read what he has to say first.
Bored with what you're writing? Or
Let's listen to the man himself. Ideas come from daydreaming. True. They come from drifting. So next time you find yourself with time to burn, stop yourself reaching for your smartphone and let your brain remember how to amuse itself. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's called when I'm trying to fucking sleep at night and I just sit there for 2 hours laying in the bed just pissed off because I can't sleep because my brain is making up scenarios that'll never happen. What if I go to the bank tomorrow, somebody tries to rob it, and the only thing I have on me is my wallet, but if I throw it at a certain angle, I can hit him in the eye and save the day. Stupid stuff.
That remind me, I'll be at work, and I'll, I'll have an interaction with this fucking, terrible customer or this really weird, strange person, and then I'll spend the rest of the day, how did they get there? What happened to them in their lives that got them to that point to whenever I saw them? And could I make that entertaining or not? Like, what happened there? How much drugs did that person do to cut out every 3 words in a sentence whenever I'm talking to him?
It's amazing that there are people like that out there that you see every day. And I have the privilege of, I drive for a living, so that's a lot of just not on my phone, so it's a lot of kind of daydreaming time or just unfocused, just following the road, but your mind's not there.
Yeah.
So I think of all kinds of crazy shit, and I meet the weirdest people every day, so I always have a story.
You should probably carry a little, like, pocket recorder with you. Oh, didn't...
I have a phone.
I'm just saying it might be easier to, like, as you're driving, you don't have to fumble for an app to, like, you could just click, and then...
I do. I have it. It's in my bag.
I'm going to say, because then we get...
That's what we got for when we were doing the cons, doing interviews.
That we never used for anything at all.
I used it for listening to the, or recording panels, listening to them playback.
Yeah, I guess.
No, we never interviewed anybody because there wasn't anybody really interesting to interview.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Which is why we should probably go to some literary cons. Completely changing the subject.
Again.
We're good for that.
Yeah.
Did you... I don't know if you've seen... I keep getting ads on my Facebook for Pittsburgh Writers Workshop.
No, I haven't.
I looked into it. I thought that'd be a cool thing to do. And they get like publishers and agents or something that look over your work and do different things like that. It's all day. It was like $160 or $40 or something crazy. Like, I'm not spending that just so I can have somebody tell me what they think of my work.
Yeah.
Like if it was like $20 or something.
And that's just for like a day, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's one day. But I was reading some of the comments on there, and people were very unhappy with the thought of it, because apparently a lot of times people steal ideas from those things.
Ooh, that does seem like a problem.
Yeah, I never thought about that, because I always hear about people going to writers' workshops, but at the same time, those people I never see publish anything.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the thing too, like, we've done previous episodes, and we will probably do more like it in the future of brainstorming, coming up with ideas, and like, if I said something that could help you out in a story and you use it, I'm not going to be like, ooh, that Caleb James, he took my idea. Like,
you know what? This actually brought up a really good point. I had a discussion last week or the other day or something on Twitter with a couple, like a handful of authors about, I brought up the topic of what do you do if you write something and then a more popular...
I think I saw your tweet about
more
this.
Popular form of like a movie or a TV show or even another, like a more famous author releases that same premise or story or whatever it may be. And I actually thinking, people thought I was talking about myself. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mention any names, but I was talking about Dirk Manning.
Yes.
If you saw with the whole Bandersnatch thing. And I looked
they're getting all kind of trouble for that now. And I mean, just not even with his thing. They're getting fucking sued by multiple people.
Well, the actual Bandersnatch books or the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah.
Because I watched that when it first came out, and I didn't make the connection because I didn't read that particular story he wrote, but I did notice they said Nightmare World, which is the title of the story. And then when I read the article he put out about it, that is a weird connection because not only were the themes like his work, but they actually said Nightmare World. I mean, I can't say for sure if they actually jacked his work or not. Like, going back, my point was more along the lines of, what do you do if you write a book and before you have a chance to get it published, say you wrote sparkling, lame-ass vampire book, and then Stephanie Meyer's comes out with Twilight before you. Do you still release your sparkling, lame-ass vampire book?
I think...
Because you can't, just put it out there, you can't get sued because you have just the dates on, for instance, your computer, or whatever you written it on, like the documents, they have the dates, like, it's proof that you didn't steal the idea. So you don't have to worry about copyright infringement. But people are going to think you stole copyright just because that's how people are.
Well, I would say if you already have the majority of the work done and you actually have like it lined up to where you might be able to get it published, do it because or maybe if you have time, maybe you can retool it so it's a little bit different. But then, especially like with like the example you just gave with shitty, sparkly vampires, when that came out, you could probably have maybe rode the coattails of that and got other, tween goers who were looking for that.
Yeah, if you want to go
come to your work. I mean, it's maybe not the most, like,
ethical,
or like what you were immediately were hoping to happen. But I mean, to sell, you got to sell stories. Like, that's the business you're in. You might be able to siphon off some of those people, or like The Walking Dead when it got big and that TV show blew
everything
up,
came out zombies.
Yeah, so...
Well, one of the authors, she told me that a story or a book she had published, like a TV show came out right around the time, or I think it was a movie came out around the time, that actually used the same story pretty much and character names.
Wow.
And there was no way they could have stole it from her because she didn't release it just yet.
Yeah.
And she ended up releasing hers anyway because, like I said, as long as you have the dates and stuff to prove there's no copyright infringement. And she didn't want to retool or change the story, which you kind of have to respect, but that puts you in such a weird situation because that happens a lot, actually.
Especially
like you said, there's only so many story ideas out there.
Especially when you're on the lower part of the totem pole when it comes to that kind of stuff. If you haven't made a name for yourself, like...
Yeah, so, I mean, and then just even if you are a more known author, a movie's always going to trump a book, usually.
Yeah.
Just in regards of attention. More people watch movies, so I don't know what I would do. I thought to myself, what would I do if I put my heart and soul for a whole year into a book? I had it, edited it, it was perfect in my eyes, just what I wanted to release, shopping it around, maybe even gets picked up by somebody, and then a movie by,
Michael Bay.
I was going to say, who does the shitty Transformers. Michael Bay comes out, and he uses your idea and does a real shit job of it. People are going to look at your book, and they're reading, like, oh, this is like that shitty Michael Bay movie, and just dump it. Like, that'd be such a kick in the nuts. That boils my blood. Let's go to the next tip. That's an interesting one. Number 5. Seek feedback. Here's my opinion on it. As we were saying with critique groups and writing groups and things like that, you definitely want feedback that helps you grow as a writer. And you need to be able to accept criticism of your work. Because a lot of people take things too personally. They take critiques on their work as a personal attack, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Somebody's judging your work. You have to think when you read a story, say there's something in it you don't like, you air out your grievances just on social media or whatever, something you're passionate about. You're not actually thinking about the guy who wrote it necessarily, or the lady who wrote it. You're thinking more about just the story itself. That's how you have to go into a critique from others, is they're not critiquing you as a person. They're not critiquing necessarily your ideas, they're critiquing like just what you've written, or maybe
hopefully, if they're not being douchebags about it.
There's fucking assholes out there that are gonna just, as you see in the Marvel or mainly DC movies, you'll have fucking critiques come out of the woodwork, like just critics just shitting on things without even seeing it.
Yeah,
I want to go see the new the Glass movie, the Unbreakable trilogy, and people were shitting on it, and it wasn't even released yet. The critics were blah blah blah, it sucks ass. But the last couple movies they did that to, the critic rating was super high, or the viewer rating was super high, but the critic rating was real low. So what is happening out there? I think you have more people just wanting to hate on things than just because.
And then you have people who in those situations who think that their opinion is worth more, maybe, and like that to critics, people who can't do.
Well, here's what infuriates me about critics. Well, like you said, they critique things they can't do, but that's more along the lines of people that actually get paid to do it. But when you go, the hell is he doing? Why does he have a gigantic ball? Okay, when you have things, Jesus. But when you have things like, especially for indie authors or even published authors, like through traditional means, but they're not necessarily have a name like a Stephen King. When you have a Goodreads or an Amazon review section, and you have people that I've actually seen, I haven't read the book yet, and then they go on about some stupid thing. Like, for instance, on Amazon, to go in, they didn't receive the book in the mail. They'll give it 1 star because they didn't receive the book. I didn't receive it, shitty delivery, whatever, 1 star. Or, like, it came to me, a more appropriate example is, it came to me damaged. Like, I received the book, it was damaged, 1 star, or I didn't read the book, blah, blah, blah. That's such a shitty thing to do, because now people are going to see, oh, he's only got 3 stars on his Amazon. This must not be a good book.
For something that's out of his control.
Yeah, and it's not actually that person's fault at all. It doesn't have anything to do with it. And on Goodreads, I see people read the book, but they're like, I really, really don't like sci-fi. I decided to give this a try. Surprise, I didn't like it. And they give it a 1 star. Why would you do that? You know you don't like the genre. You know it's not going to be in your type of book. Yet you read it, and then of course you're disappointed because you didn't like it, because it's not... I mean, actually, it's meeting your expectations that you didn't like it. Why would you give it a 1 star? Now that indie author has, again, like I said, 2 or 3 stars on there, because maybe they only get 10 reviews. So 1 star review really knocks that down.
That does a lot.
Yeah, and you get a couple people do that. It's such a shitty thing to do, and they don't give any kind of positive feedback. But at the same time, you get the people that will give you positive feedback. That's what you want to be able to know. Like, you have to learn how to accept it.
And it's with the feedback, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to find people that are going to give you honest, accurate feedback of, like, the people that's just... Because you have, on the one end, the people that are just going to shit on it no matter what.
And then your mom or something.
Yeah, that's just going to think it's great because you did it. Like,
well, here's Neil Gaiman's words on it, and I think this is actually pretty applicable. Show your story to friends whose opinion you respect and who like the kind of thing that it is. So that goes with the, for instance, the genre or something like that. They have to be into that, or else they're probably not going to like it. For instance, I had an author a couple months ago who wrote for the site. He sent me his book, and I gave it a read, and it was really well written. It was like a steampunk military book set in the Civil War time. That is not my genre of reading.
No.
So I'm not going to critique that book. I will critique the writing, which was excellent. And I could critique the story idea, which was also excellent. But at the same time, that's just not my kind of book. While I could recommend it for people who like that kind of stuff, I'm not going to go and say...
You're not going to recommend it to, like, me.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like, well, I didn't really like this book, Spencer, because, it's not my kind of genre I like reading. And I know you don't like this stuff, but you should read it. Like, that wouldn't make sense. But if somebody likes that kind of stuff, like, you probably really will like this. It's very well written. Anyway, it continues with, remember when people tell you something's wrong or doesn't work for them. They are almost always right. When they tell you exactly what they think is wrong and how to fix it, they are almost always wrong. I got some good advice from the Dead Robot Society sometime back. Probably when they first started, way, way back when.
I say, because they're always, one of the big things that they're always talking about are their, like, readers or their beta readers and different things like that.
That's what it was. They ship out to their beta readers who do a lot of editing and, not necessarily editing, they find, like, mistakes, continuity errors, things like that, like, your girl's eyes are green, but later on you make them brown.
Or just unclear writing to where they might not be 100% sure what's going on at the time.
And I think it might have been Terry who came up with what I thought was a really good way of going about it. You can't just take a person's opinion on something, and you can't just take like a whole group's opinion on something, because it might not. What he does is he kind of averages it together. So say like one guy really, really enjoyed his second paragraph, or his opening paragraph, but the other guy didn't enjoy the opening paragraph for whatever reason. Well, say he gets 10 people, he kind of averaged together to find out what might be wrong with that paragraph and what's working for the paragraph, and that's how he takes the critique, as more of a collection of ideas versus just a person's opinion.
Yeah.
So you get a collection of opinions, you kind of get the means to it, and like I just think that's a really good way to go about it. So, say you wrote a book or something, and you start reading the reviews. Instead of getting down on yourself for all the negative reviews, which a lot of people do, you also read the positive ones, and you just find out what's working and what doesn't work, and adjust accordingly.
I mean, and like the negative reviews, and even like when it comes to rejections of whenever you start submitting things, use that as motivation. Like I remember in the Stephen King on How to Write, he talked about before Carrie got picked up, he had like this huge stack
he put on his wall.
Yeah, he literally like tacked on the wall right in front of where he was writing, just this thick pile of rejection letters from people who are probably kicking themselves in the dick now. Like,
yeah, because you imagine how much an old Stephen King story in a magazine's worth now. Like if you get that issue of that magazine, probably ridiculous. The next tip here, which is completely the opposite of our earlier tip. Number 6, edit, but know when to stop.
I think this is more of like editing
afterwards.
Yes.
And this brings up something that I can honestly say I don't have a problem with. I think I'm pretty good at not over-editing. Because what a lot of people do is they'll rewrite for it. When I was in that writing group that we had that project we're working on, I wrote my story in a month.
Yeah.
They've been working on theirs for like 6 months or something. But I wrote my story in a month, finished it, got it, edited it, and turned it in. And then they ended up pretty much shitting the bed with their stories.
I was going to say, did anything ever happen to it? Did it just end up getting scrapped?
They ended up quitting. And the main thing was a couple people in the group kept rewriting the fucking story over and over.
So now you got to do something. You got to do something with that story now, since you.
I'm probably gonna put it on the site because I submitted it to a couple magazines just for shits and giggles, but it's too long.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent size.
It's like 11,000 words, and most magazines cut off as 6 or 7 at most. I'm not gonna be able to find a home for it, so I'll probably just put it on DPW because I really liked the story. And
it's good. I don't remember if I actually got around to reading the final edited version of it, but I remember what you let me read of it. I enjoyed it.
I think I did a really good job of wrapping it up. That was one of the few stories that were really long where I felt like because I think it was because of the time limit I had.
Yeah.
Because I thought those other people were serious. Like, again, it goes with the writing success thing. If I stuck with it and was like, hey guys, come on, let's just work through it, keep writing stuff, I'd be in that fucking project now.
Yeah.
A year later, I'd still be in the project. It's like, you gotta know when to quit.
You gotta know when to hold them. Gotta know when to fold them.
You gotta know when to do something with your scrotum. I don't remember the rest of the words.
No, that's literally, that's all I got. That's all I got when it comes to that song.
Neil's, Mr. Gaiman, I don't know.
We can call him Neil.
Neil. Well, maybe people think Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I feel like he's more famous Neil. I'm going to go Mr. Gaiman.
Mr. Gaiman.
Is it Gaiman or Gaiman? I believe it's
Gaiman.
See, I think a Ninja Gaiman, Ninja Gaiden is the game.
Yeah.
I always want to say Ninja Gaiden, but it's Gaiden. And then I get Gaiman and Gaiman. Mr. Gaiman, his words on this specific topic is, fix it. The fuck is that, a helicopter?
Somebody landing in your backyard?
I wonder if that'll pick up on the audio here. That is definitely a helicopter. Oh, that's the hospital helicopter.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to fix a drink while that's flying over.
So, Caleb, what did Mr. Gaiman have to say about this particular subject?
Well, since I was so rudely interrupted by a goddamn helicopter, apparently Arnold brought the chopper earlier than I expected. The topic, edit, but know when to stop. Mr. Gaiman, he said, fix it. Remember that sooner or later, before it ever reaches perfection, you'll have to let it go and move on and start to write the next thing. Perfection is like chasing the horizon. Keep moving. All I goddamn agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
100% in the topic.
That's pretty solid right there.
Don't rewrite to death. You have to know when to stop. You can't just keep writing and writing because it's like a painter trying to constantly fix the work. At some point, you're going to make it worse, and then it's just never going to get done. You have to know when to stop. Not much to say on that one. Number 7, experiment.
I think that's healthy.
That's what a lot of people do in college, apparently.
Yes.
A lot of some touching.
And groping and...
Apparently, he said, this one doesn't have a quote attribute, so I don't know if he actually said this, but it's in blue, so maybe. It just says, experiment with your writing. You don't have to show anyone the bad stuff. I like to experiment with different things I don't. Like, I wrote a story in the style of H.P. Lovecraft just to do it. That was pretty cool. I worked doing different, I want to experiment more in writing in different tenses, because I usually just write past tense, but I've written in present tense, but, like, what would be, like, what is it, you got first person, second person, third person.
Yeah.
Well, I never written in second person, I don't think.
That would seem kind of difficult.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Maybe fourth person, is that one? I'll make one.
Make a new person.
Yeah, but I've experimented my writing a good bit, and I like doing it. And usually once a month I'll try to write something that I don't write in that way at all. I figure that's a good method of keeping things fresh, keeping you creative, and just keeping things entertaining.
And just because you write it doesn't mean you necessarily have to do something with it.
Well, like he said, yeah, you don't have to show anybody.
But it should. I don't know, like, about you, but, like, I don't necessarily, like, if I would actually be able to, get this off the ground, I don't want to be just, like, a sci-fi writer or just a horror writer.
You don't want to be a genre writer.
Yeah, I want to be able to tell different kind of stories, no matter the genre, or I just want to make fun, entertaining, good stories. If it's a romance story, or
so be it. Like one,
or as you so regularly pointed, if it's fuckfic, I want it to be the best, fuckfic that it could be.
I think it was last year, the year before, I did for the website flash fiction series. I think it was like 12 Nights of Dreams or something.
Yes,
and it was kind of short flash fiction pieces based on dreams I had. So they didn't really necessarily have a direct meaning, like a beginning, middle, and end with a necessary, like a theme you can actually follow. It was an experimental series, and it did decently well, and I had fun writing it. It was something different. And I think, I would urge all people just to give your hand at something, try your hand at something you're not necessarily either good at or just something you haven't tried before. Comics, for instance.
Because, again, to bring it back to, like, the workout analogy, like, it's a different muscle group that you're working on, and it can only make you better as a writer.
I mean, that would be my top recommendation when it comes to the experimenting, is just do things you aren't comfortable with. And you don't ever have to even let anybody read it. Just try it out. Just see, because you never know what'll work. You could be one of those people who shuns romance, and then one day you just give it a try, and it turns out, oh wait, I'm a really good romance writer.
Yeah, and then you never know when you're screwing around with something like that. Like that particular thing might not lead to something, but then that might spark an idea for something else.
Exactly.
That you can use later on.
Number 8. Well, this one's a real doozy. I don't know if anybody can fucking keep up with this. Read.
Yes.
He says, read everything you can lay your hands on. By the way, most of these topics were covered in Stephen King's On Writing. So how original is Mr. Neil Gaiman? Again, is he just recycling other people's work? We need a drum machine. Well, I have an FX thing on here we could use, but I don't know how to use it. All I know how to do is make our voices echo.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
For our Halloween podcast next year, we'll do that.
Everything's just going to be echoes.
Spooky. Anyway, he says, read everything you can lay your hands on. Read the classics in whatever areas of writing you want to work in so you know what the high points are. Read outside your areas of comfort so you know what else is out there. Read. I really follow the rule of reading the top work in any genre, especially like a sci-fi or a horror or something like that. I will look to find what the top books are and read those purposely just to see where that bar is set.
Yeah.
So that way I know it gives you kind of a level where your writing is, and you can kind of judge compared to their, not that you necessarily want to judge yourself compared to especially somebody like a Stephen King, but you can judge yourself in a way that'll be productive and positive for you. So you'll know, okay, this is how awesome this story is. Maybe if I follow some of these elements like the way he wrote, I can build myself up to that level. I know where the bar is, and maybe I can clear it one day.
My only caveat to that is, and I almost brought this up earlier whenever we were talking on a different topic, but looking at the list, I wanted to wait until we got to this about the how we was talking about like making sacrifices and stuff like that.
Right.
You want to make sure you're not reading too much
to influence your work.
Or just to take up your time writing. Like, you
have to strike a good balance.
Because like I know a lot of whenever like I've read a lot of interviews and watched a lot of interviews of comic creators, both like writers and authors, or just even like Kevin Smith. I've heard him say this multiple times of whenever he went to go to make Clerks and stuff, and then started to get what he was steadily putting out work. You kind of have to he sold his comic book collection, and as of now, he's still a huge fan of the medium and stuff like that.
He might not be able to follow it as much.
Yeah, he doesn't. His weekly pool thing went into just dwindle to then there's pretty much nothing. So to go back onto a previous topic of sacrifice, sometimes you might have to sacrifice those things as well if you want to.
Well, what I've done in my personal life, because I read every single day, usually novels. And what I do is I try for to limit it to maybe an hour, unless I have some extra time or something.
Yeah.
Because for a while there, I would get into a book and I'd really like it. I'd read for 3 or 4 hours when I get home. I don't get any writing done.
Yeah.
That's just not good. And two, especially when you read in binge sessions like that whoever you're reading, depending on the genre and how it relates to your work, it might bleed into your work.
That or just even, like, I don't know about you, but, like, in stuff I've enjoyed it, but, like, I know, like, I've gone into, like, big reading binges, and at the end of it, you're just like, I don't want to do nothing. I'm tired.
It can definitely sap your creativity, too, because unlike TV, you're the one creating the pictures.
Yeah.
You're creating the images, so you're using all that creative energy in somebody else's work that you're reading versus your own work.
Yeah, you don't want to make sure that you're consuming more than you're creating.
Yeah, you have to strike a good balance. I think an hour a day is a pretty good, that's a pretty good bar to set, because you're not overdoing it, but you're still getting a decent amount of reading done. Because before I was reading about a novel a week, but that's kind of hard to keep up if you're trying to write too.
Well, and that's like that I mentioned previously about I just finished the Magician's Trilogy.
You read that pretty quick, right?
I read all 3 of those within about a month, maybe a month and a half, which is super fast for me.
Right.
But I can tell you within that time period, my writing went,
Down the toilet.
No, granted, the only saving grace I could maybe say is that, I was using it to help write a thing for the website that will be out later, depending on when this episode drops. I'm not sure.
It'll be the week before this drops.
So you can look at it like a compare and contrast between the series and the books. So I can kind of use that as an excuse to not write anything, but it's still not a good excuse.
I try to think of my reading now more as watching TV, where, it's a more beneficial version of that, but still entertainment. Yeah. But if you overdo it and you're slacking on your writing, then it's becoming a problem. You have to limit it, even if it's beneficial, even if it helps your writing, you can't you think, you can't overdo reading. That's a good thing for you, but you really can.
Or maybe what you need to do is, use it as the reward. I did my 25,000,
hit your word count.
Yeah, so now I did that. I was able to get a little bit extra. I got some time before I got to go to bed. Maybe I'll try to get the next chapter of this, this book done or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. What I usually do is I read before, on my lunch at work.
Yeah.
Because before I used to write on my lunch at work, but now I'll read that way when I get home and I have more time.
Yeah.
I'll use that for writing, and then before I go to bed, I'll read when I'm in bed.
And then you don't feel as... Because I know sometimes because I've done many of an article and stuff like that on a break or lunch, and you kind of, you feel kind of rushed, I want to try to get as much of this done before I have to go back, and then it might hurt the quality of... Now, granted, you can always go back and change and things like that, but... As I stated earlier, my editing and going over things aren't the greatest, so... Dog shit.
Big steaming turd coming out of a dog butthole in the deepest winter night.
So there's steam coming off of it?
Steaming. No flies, though, because...
It's just winter, yeah.
Alright. Number 9. Live as much as you can. This is something I've written about... I can't remember, what was that article? Was it, no, it was actually, I think it was called Go Out and Do Shit or something like that. It was not so crude, but it was pretty much, if you want to be a writer, you have to have experience in real life.
Isn't that the whole, Hunter H. Thompson,
Yeah, the Hunter S. Thompson lifestyle was, he might have did a little too much.
Yeah.
But go out and do some shit that's worth writing about. I think Ben Franklin said that, something along the lines of, you have to do things that are worth writing about, or don't... What is it, they always say, if you had a book of your life, would anybody read it?
Yeah.
Well, if you're not doing anything interesting, what the fuck are you going to write about? While you do have your H.P. Lovecraft types who were shut-ins, who just were really creative, for instance, how many sex scenes did H.P. Lovecraft write? I read 0, and I read his whole collection. How many romantic interludes or things between men and women did he write about? Or any kind of realistic relationships between men and women? None, because he didn't
he didn't have that experience.
Yeah, I think he had a woman at some point, but he was very awkward and like that. Or even just with a lot of people say his work was racist because he was very racist because he was scared of anybody that wasn't like him because he never went out. So how would he write about interacting with different people of not even necessarily different ethnicities, just different people in his neighborhood?
Or just even, like, I don't know about you, but if there's ever, like, I know there's been time where I've gone and sat in front of, like, the old laptop and you're trying to get something out and you're just like, oh, what's the point? I'm dumb, it's useless, why even bother? But if you're out having those experiences and having, like, a good time and really living, it will affect you emotionally and mentally enough in a way that it might make your writing easier or not so much of a pain.
When you do things in your real life that are like the kind of things that really stick with you, and you're a writer, you want to tell those stories. For instance, like Jack Kerouac, he wrote like On the Road, or the book I read recently of his was Dharma Blues. And that was about, like, a big chunk of that was about him spending time in the mountains. He got a part of, like, a fire patrol or something. So he lived by himself in, like, this little hut thing in the mountains. Not Big Sur, but something like that out in, like, Oregon or somewhere. It was about his experiences, like, hitchhiking across America and things like that. I think that's, from what I understand, most of Jack Kerouac's work is just about him, hanging with hippies and the beatnik crew of his day and drinking and stuff like that. If he didn't do any of that, he probably wouldn't even been a writer because what he have written about. Like that, those things really deeply affected him. Or like John Steinbeck. A lot of his work is influenced by growing up in California and just the things that he experienced in his life. Or like a Hemingway, he was in World War I. He was an ambulance driver in Italy, and that's like his first 3 or 4 novels were about that. About living in Europe and the things he did in Europe. So if you really want to be a writer, unless you're just super, super creative, because obviously going back to Stephen King, he wasn't ever a clown in his life killing people.
If I remember correctly, there was some weird fucked up things that happened in his childhood that could have influenced his own outlook.
Again, a lot of the things he's experienced, though, or even just something simple like 1408 about staying in creepy hotels.
Yeah.
Like, that's easy, and like just that's an easy thing. You're not really doing anything crazy. You're just staying in a creepy hotel. Or just a basic hotel, and you just think, man, it'd be creepy if this thing was haunted.
Yeah.
And then there you go. There's a story. You have to go out, like the article I wrote, you have to go out and just do things. If you just wake up, go to work, come home, take care of the kids, go to bed, what the fuck do you have to write about?
And not saying that that's not a good life or anything for the people who that's what they're doing. It's just, it makes it difficult to
tell stories.
Yeah.
The best stories, in my opinion, are the ones that have a hint of truth to them, that come from a personal experience. Like, any story that's really worth merit usually comes from the heart in some way. Whether it be a Stephen King writing in Pet Sematary about, Gage gets hit by the truck.
Yeah.
Well, that stemmed from a real life incident of one of his sons almost getting, like, there was where he lived, there was busy traffic, and that was his biggest fear. And that scene, whether it is in the book or in the movie, really affected people.
Or to anybody who's read his Dark Tower series, in the past couple books, he actually introduces himself into the series, and they go over him getting hit by the drunk driver. So, like, if that never happened, who knew how, like, the rest of that series might have turned out?
Yeah, I mean, that's really putting yourself in the work, and that's what you have to do. Because I find a lot of the authors, even the authors I follow on Twitter, the main problem with a good bit of them is they're not putting themselves in their work. A lot of them are telling Game of Thrones type stories and things like that, which is fine, especially in like a fantasy genre or something. But even so, you still have to put yourself in the work, or how is it original?
Yeah.
Because even H.P. Lovecraft, like I said, he didn't get out. He didn't really experience things, but he still put his lack of experience in his books. Like I said, the racism and stuff, that's why everything was coming from outer space, and it was scary and strange, and it was foreign to him. Like, he was writing from his personal experiences and his personal views, but he was putting it in more of a creative way. I mean, even going back saying you do just work most days, you go to work, come home, take care of the kids, go to bed, you can still write about what happened at work, or maybe what your fears are for your children. Like, what would be something that really scares you, or what's something you really cherish? What are those little moments that, like, you know, your kid brings you a macaroni art from school or something, and they say something cute and funny, and that just touches you. That's something you could share with people, but you have to stop and recognize those moments and be able to bring them back and have an audience connect with those.
Yeah.
All right. Number 10. Be clear. You know, I feel not all famous authors follow that.
Oh, no.
Just bringing back H.P. Lovecraft. Be clear. Motherfucker, I read a whole story where I didn't know what happened. Or Edgar Allan Poe. I've read many stories where, like, wait a minute, this whole thing is in French. What the fuck am I reading? He said, Neil Gaiman says on the subject, don't obsess over grammar. Good tip.
Yeah.
But also, pay attention to grammar. Please, for your editor's sake, at least watch the grammar. You don't have to obsess over it, but put together some solid sentences. If you have to obsess over clarity. There you go.
Yeah.
Write as clearly as you can. When it works, there's a magic in writing. You can get an idea out of your head and into someone else's. That's your goal. I find, like, especially, for instance, just a story I'm working on right now. I wanted to write something for today, for like a flash fiction piece. But of course, I wrote it last night, and of course it went fucking too long, so it's not flash fiction. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just post it Saturday. But a problem I was having, which is honestly not a problem I have too often, I was kind of writing it fairly fast because I wanted to be flash fiction. I was trying to get it out, and then I ended up saying, fuck it. It was, there was good chunks of it that just didn't make sense. Like, I wrote the sentences, but I would either focus too hard on them. So, like, there was a sentence, like a guy, his girlfriend's locked in the bathroom. She's upset with him because he was cheating on her. Simple sentence, right?
Yeah.
Well, no. My stupid ass had to go, well, maybe he went through the living room and then he picked up a sofa or straightened that and he picked up a cell phone and he walked over and he took off his shoe. Like, who the fuck?
It's very convoluting. Like.
Yeah, not needed. Or here's a better one. To prove his love for her, because he was messaging some other girl on, I didn't say what it was, but like something like Instagram or some dumb shit. He was messaging another girl and she wanted him to stick his dick in a glass of ice water and she would take a picture. Now, just to give you the payoff, because it's going to be posted tomorrow, which means by the publishing of this, it'll be 2 weeks old. She took a picture of his dick because she wanted to keep it on his phone as blackmail so he would be faithful. But what she actually did was take the picture on his phone and send it to everybody in his contacts. Cool. Literally. A cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But I had him, like, he was grumbling about it. He didn't want to obviously do it, but
like, why is it gonna be in the thing of ice? Like,
yeah, well, to make it small.
I know why, but
I went into a shrunken winter.
I'd be like, can you can take a picture of my dick, but can it just be like a normal flaccid, like?
No, it's gotta be embarrassing. That's why.
Oh, and don't shave your pubes for a while either. Yeah.
But anyway, I had it set so, you know, he's gonna stick his dick. He's obviously gonna be grumbling about it, but he goes through with it because he wants to show that he loves her. And if it was a longer story, probably going, oh, he's a piece of shit with no job, no place to stay, something like that. I didn't go into all that, but what he ends up doing is he goes, gets a glass of ice water, sticks his wiener, takes a picture, right? My initial sentence for it, for whatever fucking reason, was, oh, he walks through the living room, he goes to the kitchen, he takes the ice out of the freezer, he puts the ice in the glass, he fills it with the cold water from a jug, puts the jug back in the fridge, takes the glass of water, goes back to the bathroom, puts it on the... None of that was needed.
That was just somebody trying to hit a word count there.
Yeah, it is horrible, and I see writers do that, which is like we've had submissions where I tell people like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
Like, hey, we don't pay you by the word. We don't pay you at all. But if we did, it wouldn't be by the word.
Writing tip from Caleb James: do not describe everything a person is doing. It's not necessary.
Yeah, because you could have literally just been like, so-and-so made his way to the kitchen to get the cold glass of icy water.
I ended up saying he went, got ice from the freezer, put it in a glass, filled the water, went back or something. Like, one sentence long, not 5. What I see a lot of people do is they describe every action, every event. And, for instance, unless it really has something to do with the story, I've seen people, like, say somebody's pouring a glass of whiskey. You can easily say, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, and he takes a sip, grimaces, and then you go back into the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Normal, good flowing story. But I've seen people say, oh, he pops the whiskey with great force, and then it almost blew him back, and he pours it in his glass with a slosh, and it swirls around the glass, mixing...
And here's the clank of the ice against the glass.
Clank of the ice, and the aroma of alcohol mixes with the sweet air and causes a sickening sweet... Like, whatever it is, some stupid shit. The only time that's acceptable is if that actually means something.
Yeah.
If, like, for instance, the alcohol was poison, like the whiskey had poison in it, well, then maybe there's a reason you're focusing on him making that glass of whiskey so much. That's a good way to do it. So, for instance, somebody has poisoned food, and you're talking about, like, 2 people are out eating a meal. You're barely going to describe them eating the meal, right? Yeah. But if that, like, his sandwich is
well, that's if you're J.R.R. Martin, who goes on, like, chapters of the food that they eat, but, sorry.
Again, that's completely unnecessary. But if you are... you want to put that food is poison, you really want to get the tension build up. He puts it to his lips, but then he starts talking and doesn't bite. And then he slowly starts to bite it, and he's chewing and chewing. That's the only time you really want to focus on that, when it actually is important.
Yeah.
But otherwise, cut all that extra shit out. Just be clear and direct to the point. That's where something like the Hemingway editor, which is an app you can buy for $20-$30 or something, is good because... I mean, one, it gets rid of all the it shows you all the adjectives you put in and things like that. But it'll show you by your sentences if they're too hard and if they're really hard to understand. Like, it puts them in 2 categories. So if it's a difficult sentence, you might still keep it. A lot of times, you just use multiple commas or something, it'll do that. But if it's like a sentence that reads very poorly for the most part, it'll flag it, so you'll be able to know. And it'll tell you what reading grade level your work is at. So 5th grade reading level is normal. Just for people in 5th grade can read your work and understand it. But if you're a fucking Alan Moore, all of a sudden you gotta be a master's degree. You have to have a PhD to read it.
And that would still even be difficult, I'd imagine.
Right. Here's one that's kind of important. This is one I never honestly could say I thought about at all. Number 11. Be kind to yourself. He says... Apparently nothing. All it says is fail, fail again, fail better. So there's no, I'm not reading that. But be kind to yourself is kind of simple. And you actually brought it up earlier when you were saying, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm fucking dumb. Nobody's going to want to read this. Why am I even doing this? If you have that attitude, you're obviously not going to succeed. You're not going to go anywhere. And everybody goes through those periods. I do that at least once a month. I'm like, why the fuck am I continuing? Why am I working? Are people really enjoying my work? I don't know. You can't, it's natural to have those thoughts, but you really got to push them to the side.
And especially whenever you get to the point of having some fans and stuff like that, you always hear the phrase imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter. Why am I doing this? I'm not good enough.
Yeah. If I did get anything good, it would just happen to be by luck, or
it wasn't by your actual merits. Yeah. So you definitely have to be kind to yourself, and the best way that I would say you could be kind to yourself without being building up your ego Kanye West style is to, cutting off Taylor Swift people. Go up to Stephanie Meyer. I'm sorry, Stephanie. Twilight was a great book, but 50 Shades of Grey was much better. They had fucking butt plugs. Yeah. They had a butt drawer. But I would say that the best advice I can give about being kind to yourself would be, God damn, I'm still talking about butt drawer. I lost it. Talk about ham or bacon or something for a minute, I'll think here.
Well, I would say on the topic about being kind to yourself is also realizing if you do something and it quote-unquote fails, there's still something you can learn by that experience of doing that, and you can take that moving forward into your work. And being kind to yourself, you might also want to try being kind to others too, because you never
very good point.
Because you never know
who's struggling,
and who you might need a favor from later. There could be a writer that you knew who maybe he's working on a collection of short stories or something, and they need another writer, and he might recommend you, but if you're just being a complete tool bag all the time to people, they'd be like, well, why would I'm not going to help that asshole. Why would I, So you just kind of, be nice to yourself and the community at large.
That's always a good advice. Just be kind.
And that's with anything, writing, life. Try not to be the asshole. And this is coming from a big asshole. Try to be
less of an asshole
as much as possible.
Well, my biggest tip, just for being kind to yourself, it's just think about this. You're doing something not a lot of people can do.
Yeah.
Because trust me, Facebook alone will tell you a lot of people can't fucking write at all.
Yeah.
You just read people's thoughts that they spew out. They just can't write. They don't have that ability, and let alone tell stories. I'm just talking about actual just sitting down and writing a coherent paragraph.
Or just talking.
I mean, how many times do you... I mean, everybody does it, but how many people you just... Every other word. Like, and you never get to the fucking point. Like... I mean, we
like
say
this podcast.
Yeah, like. I mean, everybody says it, but I've talked to people where every other word was like, and by the time I got to the fucking end of the story, I was like, "What were you even talking about?"
I find myself a lot like that with fuck.
Use fuck as a transition word.
Yeah.
So I was fucking saying to this guy, right? This fucking Mama Luke. I don't understand why you fucking had to go and build yourself a fucking house made of lot. And you're like, dude.
Wasn't that George Carlin who had a bit about how fuck is the most useful word in the human language, and how you can use it as an a verb, you can use it for everything. It's the most.
You can really use it for a lot. You can use it as a noun, but you can use it calling somebody a fuck. You could use it as an action of not just fucking, but, you're fucking doing something, you're fucking, you want to fuck. There's so many uses.
Dude, quick sidebar. I remember a couple months ago, you posted on Facebook about this comedian. He was from, overseas somewhere.
The shit one?
Yeah.
I think it was shit.
This is part of the story. So I think it was shit, and how you can use shit for everything, and and he was kind of almost playing the dumb foreigner who doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Well, since I watched that whole video and liked it and stuff, the next day or a couple days later, a video popped up just on my feed as a sponsor thing of him doing that exact same word but with ass or something.
That fucking shit.
Yeah, and then I was just I was hesitant to tag you in it or something like that and be like,
should have.
Because I liked that. I thought that guy was fucking hilarious. And then he just to see him doing the exact same thing just with a different word, I was just oh, this motherfucker.
For the folks listening at home, I honestly don't remember that guy's name. I think he was Australian.
Maybe that was it.
Or something like that. But his bit was how you can use shit for anything in America. And, I'm taking a shit. But you can take a shit, but you don't give a shit. Yeah. And it's just things like that. And you said he used it for ass.
Something he used it for a different word. I think it was ass. Because you're talking about having a big ass, or you're a tight ass, or
well, you can be you have a big ass, but then you can also have big ass rims on your car and things like that. Well, just since we were talking about shit and ass.
Many topics brought
I want to bring, and we're talking about recycling bits. Not this has anything to do with anything, but people like that motherfucking Jeff Dunham, and he uses the same jokes he used fucking his whole career. He doesn't change anything up, and it's shit ass. His work is shit ass. I don't care what anybody says. And I think he got divorced from his wife, and it turns out she wrote most of his jokes, and now his work is really shit ass. And I just don't understand why that man is so fucking popular.
Puppets.
Yeah, the puppets. And he's number one in goddamn Middle Eastern countries. Number one comedian. And his main thing is a explosive dead terrorist puppet.
And a racist old guy. And a retard. Like a mentally handicapped Southern guy. And then the old guy who doesn't everything's cranky and I'm a curmudgeon guy.
I'm work on it.
Yeah.
You know
And
what?
then makes it the racist Mexican jalapeno on a stick.
You know what? I'm going to stop because I don't want to give Jeff Dunham any more. Because for all the millions and millions, as the Rock say, the millions and millions of listeners at home for the Drunken Pen Ready podcast, because we have so many followers on this podcast, episode, 5? I don't want to give Jeff Dunham any more goddamn credit in the, any exposure that we can.
Next
The
topic.
point is, I just don't like Jeff Dunham. Never have, never did, never will. Number 12, get outside your comfort zone. Neil Gaiman says, reading outside your genre will stop you being trapped by convention. What? Reading outside your genre will stop you being trapped by convention. Okay. Wait, here. See, again, it has a quote in blue, but it's not attributed to him, so maybe this is the site saying this?
Maybe.
I'm trying to throw there. So his actual quote is, if you like fantasy and you want to be the next Tolkien, don't read big Tolkien-esque fantasies. Tolkien didn't read big Tolkien-esque fantasies. He read books on Finnish philosophy, or philology. Philology? Is philology a word? P-H-I-L-O-L-O-G-Y.
It's good enough for me.
I thought it was philosophy, but no. Philology. I'm going to have to look that up. Go and read outside of your comfort zone. Go and learn stuff.
Well, this is when they might have been kind of stretching here towards the end, because that's kind of a mixture of, like, reading and then, like, writing outside of your comfort zone. Like, that kind of seems like a mixture of multiple topics just to try to make it an even
True.
12. But, I mean, it's still kind of steady, advice.
Well, before we go into that, just because I'm a dumb American, philology, let me see the pronunciation. Philology means the branch of knowledge that deals with the structure, historical development, and relationships of a language or languages. I don't know why I've never heard that word before, because I read a lot of scientific journals. So that's very strange to me. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, does that go with any of the other ones there? I thought that kind of piggybacked on something he said already in this.
Well, like I said about, like, the reading, making sure you read, making sure you change up your, your
that's what I
writing style.
like about reading now, different genres and stuff. I kind of thought that piggybacked on that. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And we pretty much talked about that ad nauseum already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to, experiment. That's what that kind of piggybacked on, experimenting with your writing. Well, got to get out of your comfort zone. That's kind of anticlimactic way to end that.
Well, I mean, I think we gave them a good amount of
info there.
Yeah.
I only read, I think, the first 6 on that list when I found it, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And I seen a more detailed list on, like, YouTube or something. So I figured that'd be something cool to go over that people would enjoy. Sorry if it wasn't as entertaining as the 50 Shades of Grey reading.
As recording this before it actually drops, as entertaining as we hope it's gonna be.
Yeah.
If it wasn't entertaining for you, at least take solace in that it was super entertaining for us to do.
Yeah. We recorded that.
That was one of the last ones we did, wasn't it? Before our break?
No, we did like a few more. I lost some podcasts, like I said, in the transition to my new laptop. Some of them got corrupted. But they were mostly like brainstorming ones and stuff. But the 50 Shades of Grey one, we recorded around the time the last movie came out.
I think so, yeah.
So between February and May of last year. But anyway, you haven't heard it after I hadn't put it up yet. But when you listen to it, it is beyond ridiculous. Like, so anybody who's listening to this one but hasn't listened to that one, listen to that one. Especially if you like raunchy humor, because that one just went off the rails.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
I think we started it with like a butt drawer. Talking about he has a drawer full of butt plugs and stuff. It's just, but the writing was so shitty. Like any rule Neil Gaiman just told us, I don't think she followed.
Nope. And just to know, anybody who listened to that one, since it's coming after that, there was many things that we didn't even talk about that was on that list. We only covered
Well, we covered all 50 of them.
Did we cover all 50?
Yeah, but
I thought we kind of just cherry-picked.
No, we definitely covered all 50 of them, but some of them we didn't give. We just kind of read them and just let that shittiness...
Just let it sit there.
Yeah, we let that shittiness just kind of, like, the shit particles float through the air and go into the, ether of infinity. We did not follow some of them because we couldn't elaborate on some... Sometimes something is so terrible...
You just gotta leave it.
Yeah, you can't really make it worse or even comment on it. It's almost
It
like...
just is.
It's like when you have a bad B movie and it's funny because it's so bad. You can comment on that. You think it's funny, you make fun of it. Like The Room by Tommy Wiseau or whatever his name is. Like, it's so shitty and it's so bad that it's good.
Yeah.
But then you got movies that are just so shitty that they're just shitty. You quit. You don't even watch them. You just give up. That's what some of those fucking categories were. Oh. Anyway, we definitely have to be over an hour on this.
I would think so.
So besides my dog throwing a fucking basketball through the kitchen and squeaking a fucking cake toy or whatever it was, and a helicopter, we had a Black Hawk fly overhead and shooting missiles. And I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think we covered some good topics, and hopefully maybe we have helped some aspiring writers out there, you know?
Yes. And when this episode airs, we'll still be on our open submission period. So for anybody listening, we are accepting winter submissions. We've only had a few so far. This is our slow period. Most people are. Like, I haven't even seen a lot of writers putting out work lately.
Yeah. Which
is unfortunate. I kind of expected it because our Halloween period was booming.
Yeah.
I could barely keep up with reading everybody's work that was submitted. But the winter time, I don't remember if we tried this previously, but I know our views always drop off around this time. But if anybody's interested, if you have a winter-themed flash fiction piece, short story under 5,000 words, or a poem, I won't even give a limit on it. Just any kind of poem. We have more information on the website, drunkenpenwriting.com. But if you want to submit, feel free. Our email is drunkenpenwriting@gmail.com, which you can send work to. You do have to have a cover letter, and the submission needs to be in the form of a Word doc or PDF. And if you'd like, you can check us out on Twitter at drunkpenwriting, not drunken pen writing, because the EN is too expensive or something. I don't know.
No, really?
Yeah, Twitter won't let us.
I thought maybe somebody else might have had it or
No,
something.
it's just too long.
Too long?
It hits the fucking character limit. Either that or it could be drunken pen write it, and that's it. Yeah, so I just went with
which maybe would have worked because it sounded like you had been drunk when you were trying to do it, maybe, but...
That's true. I suppose I could change it, right? You can change your handle. You did. Yeah. So I could probably just make it DPW if I wanted.
I know, we might get...
I never thought about it. And you can also check us on Facebook at Drunken Pen Writing. We have a good bit of, like, people liking stuff and commenting, but to be honest, I hate Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, I share memes on my personal one all the time, and sometimes I'll rant about stuff, but I really have a problem caring about what most people say, and that carries over to our Facebook, like, the DPW page. Because for a while, like a good month, I was putting more original content, like longer pieces that you could fit on Twitter on there. And they were getting some feedback, but I just didn't have the energy to put forth to just keep it up. And maybe in the future we'll get like a fucking another person that's more interested in the social media aspect. But anyway, if you want to drop by, just leave us a comment, talk, or whatever, you could do that. Hit us up on the website, Twitter.
Questions, if there's anything, podcast-wise, a topic or anything like that, we're always looking for ideas, and it makes it a lot easier on us.
Yeah, or I thought about, too, I don't know if I covered with you, but I figured we could start maybe with the winter, seeing how the winter submission period goes, but start reading people's work on air.
Yeah.
Like shorter works, flash fiction, or poems even. And, I thought that would be fun, just start doing that, throwing those into episodes. And we also have a YouTube now, which so far we are only putting the podcast on, which you can also listen to the podcast, which you probably already are on iTunes or any podcast apps available to you. But if you wanted, if you're a YouTube type of person.
People do that a lot. Yeah.
We got decent views so far on the podcast episodes I've uploaded. I just put like a generic maze video or something to go along so it's not a blank screen. And, yeah, if you want to listen to us on there, you can. If you have YouTube Red, I think you can close out, turn off, or have your phone on sleep mode or whatever, and it still plays. And, that's about it. That covers everything. So, thank you for listening. As always, just keep on writing. We'll keep on reading, and you guys have a good one.
See you guys.